What is good, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to more CSGO news. I am so happy to be here today because, first of all, welcome back. It's always great having you guys watch the show for CSGO. It's been a crazy past few days. Today's stories, all timestamped down below, will also be crazy. And where I work, they got bigger coffee cups. They used to be like half this size, and now they're this size, and I can drink more coffee, which means more energy for the video. So I hope you guys all enjoy breaking down the first situation, though. And I love the discussion on yesterday's episode. We talked about very debatable points. You guys filled the comment section, and it's always great to have more than one opinion on these subjects besides just my own words, because you guys are often smarter than me. That's on the MiBR situation, as of course we do know Coldzera apparently requesting to be benched at their two events. First of all, going to be Blast Pro LA alongside IEM Chicago, both here in July, but before the major, he wants to be benched on the roster. If that does not confuse you enough, even more sources out there, including Esports as well as Deserto. I will link both the articles down below for all of you, but that is now two sources confirming, apparently due to the emergency transfer rule on screen for all of you guys, which does state the two reasons primarily going to be health issues and visa issues as to why a player can leave a roster, and that roster can replace him after the major roster lock being, which is already passed for all of you guys who are curious. And yes, of course, Coldzera requesting to be benched apparently would not fill those rules, but on top of that, because it would not qualify as an emergency transfer case, that would mean that even Zews could not even field for the roster of MiBR and play for the major. Now, yes, if you are confused by that, I too am very confused, because I'm not really sure if that's how the rule was intended to be made. Give me the power to understand. And please hear me out. I think we need clarification either from an HLTV source or especially Valve or maybe even CSGO Dev on how this rule is applying to separate teams out there, because across all of the past 4 to 5 years, we have seen this rule applied in several different cases in several different ways. Now, I do understand they're being probably a bit more strict with it this time around, but for the fact that a player on a roster wants to bench himself and they then could not fill in their coach to play for him would make just about zero sense. And of course, we would assume that if that is the rule, that yes, Coldzera would hopefully suck it up and play with the roster anyway, but who knows what he wants to do, who knows how deep those internal struggles are. And especially when I bring up this case of Smooya, this does not really make much sense. If you guys remember back for the Katowice major, that roster lock was January 1st. On February 1st, a month later, it was Smooya. Within a couple of weeks of the major actually starting, he steps down from that roster. He benches himself. No visa issues, no health issues, or at least we don't think they claimed any for this reason for an emergency transfer, but because apparently they listed Nex as their coaching role, he could fill in for the team. So how is that different from the case? And again, guys, I'm not trying to be smart here. I'm just trying to have these questions answered, because I do not understand how a team can have Coldzera bench himself, but they can't fill in their coach, but a team can have Smooya bench himself, but because they put a player as the coach, he can then fill in for the team after the roster lock for their major run. So maybe I'm overseeing some things here, but very curious what you guys think about this. We have seen time and time again this major rule either abused or just treated differently in certain cases, and we'll talk about that in a second here in our third story when we talk about Lazarus, as they've been replaced by Luminosity because they weren't allowed to fill their roster due to this same rule. So am I missing something? Is something maybe, not so obvious that I have not seen? You guys can leave a comment down below. But speaking of what's not so obvious, this is why I love having a good sized CSGO base out there. All of you guys who do watch, occasionally you guys reach out to me with some crazy information, which kind of blows my mind. We talked about yesterday that being Vitality. MBK has come out about this quite a few times, as well as the players not being invited to events. Of course, we're talking most recently about ESL New York, though, the event that had 6 invites. Somehow the number 2 team in the world who just placed second at ESL Cologne was not invited, although to be fair, ESL New York invites might have been sent out quite some time before this. But with all of that being said, they were then going to the qualifiers for that until they did back out. Now, exactly why they backed out, though, it was MBK saying apparently their schedule would have been too busy for September, so on and so forth. But their first round matchup, who was it going to be for the ESL New York qualifiers if they did try to qualify for ESL New York? Who would it have been? It would have been Team Sprout. Now, why is that significant? Huge shouts to our man, one of our viewers, one of my friends as well from my Discord, that being Aiden, who pointed out to me as well, because in 2 days' time, who also does Vitality play for the single spot in ESL Pro League next season? Yes, that is Team Sprout. So did we just get outsmarted by Vitality? And if this is the case, it's such a subtle genius move for a team to, yes, because they don't want to risk a qualification for ESL New York where they could beat Team Sprout, right? They easily could. They are the far and away favorite, but there are many good teams in that qualification process. So yes, you might beat Sprout, but you might not even get the spot in the first place. And then you risk exposing all of your strategies, all of your maps, so on and so forth to a Team Sprout who is definitely not a dangerous team, but certainly could be a surprise team. We saw throughout their minor qualifiers as well, and especially when they had Dennis, they were a rising team out there in probably the tier 2 scene, and so you don't want to expose your tactics there for a not so much great of a chance to actually make ESL New York. And on top of that though, in 2 days time, you play for an ESL Pro League spot, which is very, very important. And who do you play? That same Team Sprout. So if it is the case, MBK and Team Vitality, and thanks to Aiden, our viewer who caught it, genius move, I like it. And if we actually caught it, that's pretty cool too. I didn't catch it, I'm stupid, but thanks to the viewers. I just really hope they don't lose to Team Sprout, because then it wouldn't be much of a big brain play, and then they lost their chance to qualify for ESL New York. I don't know if you guys heard any of that, but anyway, our very last story out there, very controversial as well. I have loved CSGO and esports news this week. It's been one of those very solid weeks, although I must say we've had a very few solid weeks on here. And again, thanks to all of you guys who support me and my coffee addiction. Lazarus, though, we talked about them as well yesterday, as Zews did delete a tweet talking about this, how apparently it was very unfair how they were treated. I did subtly agree with this because, like we talked about in our first story, this major rule has been very, very confusing to see how it actually applies to several teams out there. So on screen for all of you is actually Lazarus's official reply as to what exactly happened. And back to me for a second, this situation makes me feel so bad for the organization because it is, like every other story today, very confusing. So back on screen for all of you guys, we do go, and pretty much a TLDR of the situation. It's not too hard to explain. You got TenZ and you got FNS. Both those guys helped this Lazarus squad actually make the minor itself, and they were a part of the qualification process for the major. A key point there. Of course, Cloud9 does recruit and actually sign TenZ, and they, unfortunately enough, although it is fair, right? They paid for the player, they signed him. Apparently, according to Lazarus, it was actually Cloud9 who would not allow TenZ to remain on the squad to continue the minor for this team and actually have them possibly make the major. So that is unfortunate, but you know, Cloud9, they dropped the money for TenZ. He is their property. It sounds like we're back in the slavery days, so they can do with him whatever they feel. But on top of that, the very confusing situation is apparently FNS and Lazarus could not come to an agreement contractually about if they did make the major, so he wouldn't compete in the minor either. So you feel so bad for the triple core they do have. They also have, though, Fraud, their coach, so they have 4 players, but according here to Lazarus, yes, both TenZ and FNS were emergency cases, but they also were not allowed to actually make transfers or replacement players for those 2 cases. And so that wording, maybe again I did miss something, but they were 2 emergency cases, but they couldn't replace the players for those emergencies, which to me, it doesn't really make too much sense. And again, you feel bad for the trio there. Although, yes, we can agree with Furia and NRG in that minor as well. Lazarus had a far out shot to make the major, but it is a potential to make the major still. And again, Zeus is rejected of stickers for the 2nd time. So a very interesting case, and I would love to see an official post out there of each case broken down. NIP, we also have LG, now we have MiBR, so on and so forth. Lazarus, all these teams affected by one single major rule, seemingly in a bit different of ways. I would love to see clarification out there from an official account as to how this actually breaks down. But as always, thank you all for watching. I will probably see you back here 1, maybe 2 more times this week. Oh, frick, I didn't mean, sorry if that made it. I'm taking Friday off, so I might not see you guys too many more times, but at least 1 more time for CSGO, and of course, many other times for other esports news out there. Thank you all for watching. I will see you at the very least back here Monday, breaking down some crazy stuff going on in this crazy scene. If you guys can't tell, the coffee is now gone to my bloodstream, and I cannot wait to make more videos today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. You know what to do. Drink coffee.